Hey guys, what's up? It's Adam here. I can't see the guy. Where do I begin? Silent Night Part 5, The Toy Maker, which came in the year of 1991. I've just got to go. This will be the last video I make of the Silent Night Deadly Night franchise. And many of you are saying, well, what about the remake? To be honest, I couldn't give a flying fuck about the remake. I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it. In my opinion, the only movie that matters to me in this entire franchise is the first movie. The second movie can be a guilty pleasure for some people, but it's a bad movie. I suppose Eric Freeman with Garbage Day might give some people an erection. You know what I mean? But it's just like the first half of the movie just showing repeated footage of the first movie. I mean, you get a bad storyline with Eric Freeman and all that kind of shit. We all know what that's about. Silent Night Part 3, you better watch out. Of course, you better watch out because that movie's a fucking bore fest. Number 4 is just atrocious, or shall I say Bugs, a movie about bugs. And this movie, I could say I was like very disappointed. I mean, I remember when I watched this movie for the very first time, I was actually really excited about watching this movie because I'll tell you a little story. Back when Blockbuster Videos was around and everything was on sale for VHS or rented on VHS, my mum would take me to Blockbuster. Of course, my mum hated horror movies, but she friendly section. I'd go in the horror section. I used to watch all these VHS tapes with all these intriguing, colourful front covers that used to really stand out, and that stood out to me in a lot of things with Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Night of the Living Dead. And one movie that really stood out with the front cover was what you see right here. Silent Night Deadly Night Part 5, The Toy Maker. Showing a little kid cuddling a teddy bear, terrified out of his mind because there's toys in the background with evil eyes. And the first thing I want to say is this cover lies, man. It's a nice looking cover, but it's bullshit. Because there's not one of those animals, those toys that appear in this movie. I mean, look, you got a teddy bear, you got like a Raggedy Ann, and they all look like evil toys that are about to come to life and kill, basically. But none of them fucking show up in this movie. I remember when I reviewed this movie the first time, I did like this big rage fucking review, mega rant. And the movie was self-terrible. I watched it again moments ago. I wouldn't be able to like I did last time, so I'll just get to what I remember about this movie because it was so fucking forgettable. I did not like anything about this movie. I didn't care for the characters. I forgot all about the music. I thought the storyline was atrocious. And, if you're a fan of Mickey Rooney, who's also in this movie, then you might enjoy this flick. But I'm not going to praise a movie just because Mickey Rooney's in it. You know what I mean? So, basically, it's about this little boy. He watches his parents have sex. And then he goes downstairs. Christmas is approaching, and there's a knock on the front door. And then his father comes down, sends him back to bed, but he doesn't actually go to bed. He actually stays on the staircase. And when there's this knock at the door, there's a present on the front doorstep. The father opens it, and it's a toy. And this toy comes to life, attacks the father. The father falls down into the fireplace. Poker that gets stabbed through him, and he dies. And the little boy witnesses this, and that explains as to why his character becomes mute. Like Jamie Lee Curtis. No, not Jamie Lee Curtis, sorry. Like Jamie's character from Halloween 4. Well, Jamie becomes mute in Halloween 5, but because of the traumatizing effects or whatever. But this is why that little boy's mute. He's mute because he's terrified. He's seen a toy come to life. He sees his father die. And that explains him why the boy needs to cut some slack because he just witnessed his father being killed. That's why he never says anything throughout the whole fucking movie. The movie skips forward a little bit. We get the mother taking him to this toy store to try and treat him to some toys to try and cheer him up. And of course, he's rejecting every single offer for every toy. You know, he remains mute. He doesn't want that toy. He doesn't want that toy. And Mickey Rooney's character is playing the shopkeeper. And get this, his name is Joe Petto. That's right, Joe Petto. And his son is called Pino. So where do those names ring a bell? Joe Petto and Pino. You got it in wrong. Geppetto and Pinocchio. And what we learn about these characters is that Joe Petto is working on a creation to turn Pino into a real live boy, because we discover that Pino is a fucking toy, like this giant robot. And we see these scenes of him where he's like this giant robot and he wants to become a real boy. Just like Pinocchio, who was made of wood, wants to become a real live boy. So we get that little lame, touching segment. There's also a little touching segment where the little boy is also watching a Rambo cartoon. So those of you who are Rambo fanatics out there, you get like a little bit of a Rambo scene if you're a fan of the Rambo cartoon. But this movie is lame. I'm going to admit it's really lame. Even I could have come up with a better Christmas horror story for toys than this. You know, I mean, even the death kills are nothing to talk about in this movie. I mean, there's a death scene where this guy buys a toy for his landlord, and while he's driving home, the toy goes into his mouth and pops out his eye socket. Great little effect. Don't get me wrong, great little effect. That scene wasn't too bad. But in terms of killer toys, there's nothing much to talk about. I mean, there's a scene where the lead kid throws away this toy, and they turn out to be rollerblades. And this kid I won't say this kid steals them, he just takes them after the kid throws them away. He puts them on and they turn out to be rocket escapes. And he flies right across this park, I believe, and crashes into a car. He doesn't die, he just gets taken straight to the hospital. There's also a scene where this woman and this guy are having sex and these toys enter the room. And they kill the guy, but the woman manages to flee. But there's a toy aeroplane, you know, trying to dodge the woman. And then nothing really happens throughout the whole movie. I mean, there's not much you can say. I mean, there's not much you can say about the lead kid because he's fucking mute. He hardly says any lines in this movie. You get Joe Petto trying to turn Pino into a real life boy with all his inventions because he owns this toy store. And the movie just goes at like a really fast pace. I mean, it's not like as if I was attempting to even try and tell a good Christmas horror story here. I mean, this movie just goes to prove that they did not need 5 Silent Night, Deadly Night movies. The first one should have been a standalone movie. I mean, this movie just proves without a shadow of a doubt that they did not need 5 Silent Night, Deadly Night movies. I get it, they didn't want to go ahead with another Killer Santa Claus because they couldn't come up with any good ideas. But to have killer toys is a good concept for a scary Christmas movie. In fact, I've got loads of ideas of how these toys could come to life and cause chaos for Christmas and make it an X-rated movie, which I'll get to towards the end and finish this fucking rant. Because at the end of the movie, there's like Joe Petto dies and Pino gets destroyed. I basically just gave away the spoiler so you won't have to fucking waste your time watching this goddamn movie. But what really disappointed me is the fact that when I was a kid, I used to walk past this movie in Blockbuster videos and see the VHS of this scared little boy looking at all these evil demonic toys, thinking, wow, this movie looks really cool. I've got to see this movie. And I never got round to it. And I only got round to seeing it a couple of years ago, and I just got round to seeing it just now so I can make this rant, and just overwhelmingly disappointed of what this movie had in store for us. There's nothing likeable. There's got one good scene of a good effect where the toy goes into that guy's mouth and then comes out his fucking eyeball. That was the only thing I liked about the whole movie. You know, I couldn't give a shit about Joe Petto and Pino. Couldn't give a shit about the leading kid. Couldn't give a shit about the mum and dad. Couldn't give a shit about anybody. I mean, I've got a good idea for a good Christmas movie. What if these toys were stolen? What if a burglar had stolen all these toys and he delivered them to this little boy's house? And the parents had to go away for whatever reason, and he had a nanny or another family member looking after him. And what if the toys, the night before Christmas, they all came to life in this mansion and they caused fucking chaos for all the family members on a big killing spree? You know, I just thought of that idea off the top of my head, and even that sounds like a whole better idea than what this movie had fucking in store for the audience. You know what I mean? Or what if the boys were getting revenge? What if the toys were getting revenge because they were all stolen, and they were getting revenge? Maybe the father stole the toys for his son on Christmas, and the toys were getting revenge on the family for being stolen because the toy maker of the store had the ability to make these toys come alive, and the toys were missing their owner. That would have been a better idea. But like I say, this fucking cover tells a big lie. This lie's right off the front cover. There's not one of those toys that show up in the movie. There's no sign of Raggedy Ann. There's no sign of big gigantic teddy bears or rocking horses or anything like that. There's nothing like that in this movie. And I'm just so glad now that I've come to the end of the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise now. I'm not going to check the remake out. But overall, the first movie is a great movie. It's a great Christmas slasher, good Christmas movie about a killer Santa Claus. You know, Billy going on that rampage dressed as Santa Claus. And, the rest of the movies, when you compare them to the first movie, they all fucking suck. I suppose if I had to pick which one I'd rather watch out of 3, 4, and 5, I suppose I would choose this movie. Just for shits and giggles. At least this movie had one good scene in it, you know what I mean? But I'd choose this over number 4 and I'd choose it over number 3, but that still doesn't mean I say that I really like this movie, because I don't. I mean, many people give it props because Mickey Rourke was in it. You know, and if you like that movie, I mean, apparently he didn't even like Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 1. But I guess he liked the paycheck for being in this movie. Unless no one's going to call the movie just Toy Maker and then throw Silent Night, Deadly Night in as the fucking title. So, as much as he didn't like the first movie, he was willing to back like in one of the terrible sequels that they made right after the first movie. So, that's all I've got to say, everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't make this review longer. I mean, there's just nothing to dwell on. There's nothing to go on about. There's nothing interesting to talk about. There's nothing intriguing to talk about. Not the music, because I didn't remember a single note. The storyline was terrible. The characters were terrible. None of the characters were likeable. You know, so awful movie, everybody. Awful movie. Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 5. And like I said, when I was a kid, I was really looking forward to seeing this movie. And then when I saw it, it was like a major disappointment. This movie could have been something special, you know, for toys coming to life. But the kills weren't even that good, or there was nothing intriguing about the toys that took part in the killings in this movie. Not a good movie at all, everybody, so I'm sorry. But anyhow, I don't know what comes after this, everybody, but you're just going to have to bear with me. Christmas is around the corner, so it's time to be jolly. So it's time to put an end to all this crap. You know what I mean? No more watching bad movies on Christmas. Let's watch some good Christmas movies. I'd rather do that than review pieces of shit like this. So thanks for watching this, everyone. Email if you've got any questions or leave all your comments below. Thanks, everyone. Peace out. Merry fucking Christmas.